Don't resist, Blake. No. Come on. Do what you gotta do, Blake. Come on. Please, Blake, no. No, Blake. I swear. No, Blake. Blake, don't fight back. No, Blake. Just go. Blake, no. Just let him. No, Blake. Do not let him go, Blake. Ooh, he did nothing. He did nothing. He was walking with me. He did nothing. Blake, do not let them do anything, Blake. Blake, let them take you, bro. I'm about to call your mom, Blake, okay?
All right, hey, no, I need my permit. Hey, show my permit and shit.
Okay.
And you can't take me.
I mean, your initial reactions to all of this.
Well, listen, I'm deeply bothered by what we see on this video, and while we don't know what was the reason for the officers engaging with this person in the very beginning, everything that may have been leading up to this encounter certainly would not justify the level of force that we saw used briefly on the video recording. We see deputies slamming the alleged suspect's head into the pavement, which is not a tactic that's trained or I encourage anyone to do. We also see one of the deputies pull out his duty weapon and actually point it at the back of the alleged suspect's head. Again, what if he had had an accidental discharge? We would be having a very different situation. And so when I see our officers punishing someone who maybe in their mind is not cooperating, not complying, I don't see anything that looks like officers trying to gain control and take someone into custody. And so the question then that begs to be asked and answered now that Sheriff Villanueva has condoned this unnecessary use of force is, does everybody go out and get a tattoo to celebrate what we know deputies do at the end of a use of force? Go get inked.
Yeah, and I want to get into the culture here in a second too. Another part of the video is the one officer who had pulled out his service weapon at several points sweeps it across the crowd. He doesn't point it. It doesn't seem to be pointing directly at anybody in the crowd, but the gun is also not pointing down, and he's using his extended arm with the weapon to wave away onlookers, which is another frightening behavior by this deputy. I just always now, in the wake of George Floyd, when I watch videos like this of law enforcement officers from departments, and it's not just, of course, LA County Sheriff or LAPD, but officers that continue to put their knees into suspects' necks, that continue to wave around their guns in somewhat reckless ways. I just keep questioning what it would actually take to what it might take to fundamentally change the culture. We think that after George Floyd, we would all kind of learn our lessons over this, but it just doesn't seem to be the case.
Well, because there's no accountability, and when you force, you understand the culture. I mean, listen, the fish rots from the head, and you have in Alex Villanueva someone who's grown up on that department, who promoted through the ranks on that department, who I would like to know whether or not he's a Viking, an executioner, or a jump out boy, if he's going to go get a tattoo along with his deputies tonight to celebrate this unnecessary use of force that we saw used on Mr. Blake.
What in your mind, what does it take to radically upend police culture, and so that this type of thing becomes, much more rare, and especially the taking the weapon out and waving it around at the suspect and the people around them in the crowd? Again, you would think by now deputies have to learn that taking out their service weapon it has to be like under the most extreme circumstances, right?
It would take officers, deputies in this case, being held personally accountable, and that can only happen when, number one, folks go and vote. We're going to be doing that in a few months. It's important for people to go and vote. We need to look at the legislation that's currently being talked about in the state of California that would decertify law enforcement officers who use unnecessary force and or take a life unnecessarily, because if there isn't a penalty, if you don't do anything to deter the bad behavior, then why would the deputies do anything differently? Large civil settlements is not sufficient because that money does not come out of the pockets of the deputy nor the police department. It comes from taxpayers. So there needs to be personal liability, and in the cases when officers are found errant, they should be decertified for being a police officer on that agency or any other.
You talk about on the back end after these incidents occur. What about on the front end? I mean, what, in your opinion, what would it take in revamping police training in this country?
It's not a training issue. It's a mindset. You cannot train away racism. You cannot train away bigotry. These deputies obviously have conducted themselves very similarly, I would imagine. If we could see their personnel package, I would imagine there are probably numerous complaints of unnecessary use of force that have been minimized, mitigated, and in some instances unfounded. And so what has to happen is, certainly training is an issue, but it's not the root cause of the problem. Officers need to be evaluated psychologically, I'll just say every 2 years, to make sure that their head is in a good space. Officers need to be properly vetted even before they're hired to make sure that you get an officer who has the right temperament and skill set to be a law enforcement officer in the first place.
It's really interesting. I haven't heard that yet about the regular psychological evaluations. That makes a lot of sense. And so again, I'm asking you, I know to kind of repeat yourself, but you're saying it's not really a training issue. This is a culture issue.
It's absolutely a culture issue, and the fish rots from the head, like I said. Officers are well trained for the most part, and LAFD is a large agency, much like LAPD, and so it's not a training issue. These officers acted instinctively. They used unnecessary force because that's probably how they get down on the regular. And there's never been any accountability when they act in such an errant way. And so without accountability, and maybe even a new sheriff, since we're in an election year, this is going to continue.
Yes, ma'am. You've been fantastic. Before I let you go, I mean, anything I didn't bring up, touching on the video, anything I should have? Anything left out?
No, I don't think so. I mean, it's bad, and I believe that given the position taken already publicly by Alex Villanueva, that he will do everything in his power to shelter and cover these officers, and so that's why it's so important. Every official in the sheriff's department that heads it, a sheriff, is an elected official. Folks need to be paying attention.
Yeah, as you point out, Election Day less than 3 weeks away.